Are you curious about Gestalt language processing? You are not alone. Join me, Corinne Smoose, and speech therapy PD for our podcast, The Gestalt Get Together. Our episodes try to balance the enthusiasm and excitement about GLP and its associated intervention ideas, as well as a healthy dose of skepticism about how to understand and integrate this paradigm shift into your career and the field at large. We hope that you can get together with us to learn more about Gestalts.
Welcome to SLP Learning Series, a podcast series presented by SpeechTherapyPD.com. The SLP Learning Series explores various topics of speech-language pathology. Each season dives deeper into a topic with a different host and guests who are leaders in the field. Some topics include stuttering, AAC, sports concussion, teletherapy, ethics, and more. Each episode has an accompanying audio course on SpeechTherapyPD.com and is available for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. Now, come along with us as we look closer into the many topics of speech-language pathology.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? My name is Garrett Scudero-Oyama. I'm so excited to be back with SpeechTherapyPD.com as a host for this mini podcast series. And it's called Tunes for Talk, Music as a Tool for Language Intervention. And today is the very first installment and is titled Musical Journeys and Their Connection to the Field of Speech-Language Pathology. And just a tiny bit of background, since today is the first installment. I am, in fact, a speech therapist, but was also a musician prior to starting this career. So music is really my first love, and it's my absolute pleasure to talk about how music and speech and language are all related and how music can actually be a practical tool for therapy in a lot of ways. So before we get started, there's a few items that just to alert you to. So this course is 1 hour and is offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs. As far as any financial disclosures go, me and Dr. Erik, we receive an honorarium from SpeechTherapyPD.com. But other than that, there's nothing. And so I'm just honored and excited to have the first guest be the amazing Dr. Erik X. Erik holds a certificate of clinical competence from ASHA. And he's a practicing speech-language pathologist who works together with children and adults with various communication difficulties. He's currently an associate professor in the Department of Speech-Language Pathology at Monmouth University in West Long Branch, New Jersey, where he is also the director of the Meaningful Digital Experiences Research Lab. And before venturing into the world of speech pathology, he navigated the vibrant landscape of rock and roll as a passionate musician. And as a former member of various rock bands, he discovered the profound language embedded in music, a universal form of communication that transcends boundaries and resonates with diverse audiences. And just one of the most positive people I've ever met. I'm always smiling after talking to this guy. So excited to have him on today. How are you doing, Erik?
I'm doing fantastic. We're going to come together. We're going to make some music. Am I right? That's what conversation is.
Exactly. We're going to be, making these harmonies happen, trying to stay in rhythm. And just first of all, like reading this bio and just knowing you a little bit, I feel like you win the, most interesting man in in speech pathology award, but you just got like a million hats, working in this Meaningful Digital Experiences Research Lab as the director, doing music as well, opening for, what was that band that you opened for recently?
Hot Shell Ray, remember that?
Hot Shell Ray, that's right. Yeah.
It's great.
A throwback for anyone out there.
That's right.
And then also, teaching and all of this. I'm just wondering, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? What's your kind of superhero origin story? Where did all these things come from?
For sure. So like you and like everyone listening and watching this, I have this real passion for this broad thing that is communication, right? And from a really young age, I was always exposed to music. And what a joy that is to be able to really think back to your younger self, right? And play the movie in your mind. And like I hear the soundtrack, like it is loud and it's very obvious to me that, you know, at that young age, I was picking up on like the rhythm, right? And I have a lot of memories of listening to Michael Jackson.
Oh,
And
yes.
I mean, there's just so much emotion. There's so much, you can almost like taste the music in the same way that you would taste like your favorite ice cream, you know? So as a child, I was always listening to music, always exposed to music. And I loved how sometimes music scared me because if it was like a louder song, you're just like frightened. Other times, music would make me smile because it's this particular melody that just hits your heart in all the right places, right? And as I kind of fast forward a little bit, I started this like rock and roll band with my friends when I was 13. And that really allowed me to think about communication in like this deep way because we were making music and the music was really crafted in a way to connect with the audience, right? So in a young way, in my younger years, I was thinking very passionately about communication. So it made sense that like my world kind of just evolved in a way where I discovered the field of speech language pathology. And then I was able to really dig into this beautiful instrument that is our voice. And I'm truly grateful to be able to kind of try to create this bridge between our wonderful field and also this beautiful art that is music, you know?
Totally. So many things that you mentioned there. It just brought back memories. I remember having this Michael Jackson cassette tape and just dancing to it in the bathroom. It's such a strong memory. It's funny how music, and you know, they show this, it connects so strongly to like emotion and memory centers in the brain. And you know, like you're saying, trying to make these connections. That's just another way that music can help. Is that like it acts as a, you know, a memory enhancement for things that we're trying to learn.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful how you mentioned this idea of just like dancing, right? So you and I, as communication specialists, we understand how like the body is another form of communication, right? And when I think about my younger clients, sometimes they come to the table and they might be a little bit apprehensive to kind of use their words. So what better opportunity that might be for me to just like pull up YouTube and just play a song and then kind of just see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, the child does start doing a little bit of a move. And if that child isn't doing a little bit of that move with the rhythm, then I kind of start it off and it's like a yawn, you know, like I yawn, then they yawn from a dancing perspective.
Totally.
And boom, we're communicating in a very real way. And that's a foundation for other things to be beautifully built on top of.
I love that. Yeah, it's such a door. You know, music is, you know, known to connect people, and there's all this research showing that when you're all listening to the same rhythm, or you're all doing a drum beat together, or you're all you know, clapping together or something like that, there's this thing called rhythmic entrainment. You're all synchronized to this rhythm together, and after that happens, people actually become more they get nicer to each other. They want to work better together. They're more collaborative. It's such amazing stuff to think that comes from just listening to music. But I mean, I've found that true. I know you've played in bands before, and my experience is that like if I play music with someone, like I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be like better friends with them after, or I'm gonna at least try and understand their point. There's just something that like connects you when you play music together with someone.
That's beautifully said. I think some of that has to do with this idea of trust, because when you're being so authentic with your voice, and I'll use that loosely, it could be traditionally the thing that we use that's, you know, happening right here in our mouth, right? But it could also be the guitar or the instrument. When we are authentically taking a chance and communicating with others, there's a trust factor that you're going to show up, and like the drums are going to come together in the right way, or the guitar is going to be there when it needs to be there. And there's that harmonious, synchronous experience that kind of just comes together. And yeah, that's based in our DNA. And when we are on that plane of being so in sync, absolutely, you just are, you're totally feeling the vibes. And a byproduct of feeling the vibes is that the rapport is that much stronger, and the ultimate friendship unit is that much more legitimate.
Oh, totally. The rapport is so huge, and I think it's something that's under. We just don't talk about it enough in speech pathology. Is the necessity for rapport, because you have so many kids that come in, and I can think back, like I was kind of a shy kid. Like when I went into if I went into the strange place with this, doctor that I had no idea what they're doing, I wasn't just going to start talking to them automatically. So, it makes sense that like kind of having something that connects you, like music, and having something that you get excited about really kind of greases the wheels for communication to start flowing.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've had that experience, but yeah, I've had a few kids in practice that it's like, they won't talk at all, but then we start playing music and they open up.
It's such a beautiful thing. And I totally get it. So in the world that I'm a part of, the therapy that I'm doing is usually after school, right? So the child is going to school from, let's say, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning until like 3:30 in the afternoon. They are so tired, right? And now they're doing the whole speech thing at like 4:00. That on top of this idea that they don't know who I am yet. If this is the first couple of sessions, they're just like, who is this person? So for us to perhaps set a stage where they come in and we don't immediately say, oh, let's start talking, because that could be overwhelming for some of our young friends, right? So maybe we can ease into it a little bit. And there might be just this random instrument on the table. And with a smile, I might look at the child, and then I might look down at that random instrument. Let's say it's a tambourine. Then I look up at the child. Then I look down at the instrument. And there's this silent agreement that that's there. And if you'd like to touch it, let's see what happens. And, when you touch a tambourine, it's just like you hear the pings, you hear the clangs. And then from there, maybe that triggers a bit of a chuckle. And then maybe I might pick it up and I might drop it on purpose. And then I do like an overly cartoonish oops, and I'm like doing these big eyes and a big mouth, and then they're laughing, and then they say, hold on, let me try. And then we're playing catch now with the tambourine. So it started off in a musical way, and then it evolves into the instrument turns into a ball in some capacity, and now we're talking, and the person forgot about how tired they are.
I love that. And I think one thing I've been thinking about recently, this might go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I was going to get to the differences between speech and music. And this is kind of a beautiful example of that. And that like music is more about play. Like you're kind of, in some ways you're using the same physiological parts of your body to make music, especially singing, singing and speech, let's say. Those aren't all the forms of communication, music, obviously, but like kind of two of the main ones. But what you're doing is a little bit different. Like when you have speech, you have, it's always number one, a representation of something else. You have a symbol and, you're talking about a cup, and then you say this word and it represents something else. And it's in order to make things happen in the environment or kind of get what you want in a way like that. That's why we talk about communication functions. You want to request something, you want to reject something, you want to command or, I don't know, ask questions, something like that. And so there's this kind of this thing with language that you're manipulating the world in some way to some end, not in a maybe always a bad way, but there's something about trying to get something. And music is not a representation of something. It is in itself like simply beautiful, and in that way it's play, and it's exploring, it's curiosity, it's this other aspect of the world, and I think with that, music can almost be a guide for our speech and practicing speech, because it activates this other part of our brain and our world. And like this whole interaction that you're talking about with the tambourine, it seems like such a beautiful example of that. It's just starting with like, how do we play? It's not like me trying to manipulate you to say something, or, you know, or some test or something like that. It's just this like exploratory play. And I love that like music can be a way into that.
And that's something that we as clinicians can learn so much from if we take the time to actually think about that. This idea of play and what does that mean? In a lot of ways, I think play is this opportunity to try something out. And if it quote unquote fails, it's not a bad thing. It's simply what happened. So now let's try again. And when we think about, let's say, jazz musicians, right? And they're doing some wonderful improvisation. They have an idea as to where they're going, but ultimately they're kind of just going for it. And sometimes it quote unquote works and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. So with our clients who are growing and evolving as communicators, I think taking chances is one of the best things that they can do. And as clinicians, we can be intentional with designing an environment where that is celebrated. And music is one of those tools that can help really all that stuff come to the surface.
I love that. Yeah. It feels like jazz right now, like improv. And I love that music can be the framework and also a tool. Like it's almost both, because you come in, there's like a musical mindset of like, you know, improvisation, like where you're playing with somebody versus like, you know, trying to get them to do something. And then there's also music. So that's like almost like using like music as a framework and a way of thinking about it. And then also, you know, you can use music itself as a tool, you know, like you're saying before, playing with the tambourine or listening or singing or any of those things.
Oh, and how about, this is so beautiful. How about this? So we have the music as a mindset, we have the music as the tool, and then maybe in some way we can have music as like the third member of the actual therapy experience, right? Because we have client, we have clinician, and maybe it's like just another participant, because in the same way that you and I are communicating, the actual instrument or the music is another entity, if you will, that is communicating back with us. So like it's a very legit triangle if we're thinking like one-on-one therapy, client, clinician, and the music. That creates the triangle.
I love that.
And you and I, we're getting deep here, man.
Yeah, and I feel communication is so important it's so important to have that triadic quality when you're, you know, that's what makes one thing that makes human communication deviate from animal communication is that, like, you know, there's when you start to get joint attention where you have a kid that's pointing and then the dad also looks at this other thing, or the parent also looks at this other thing. That's like one of the amazing things is that we can both direct our attention at this other thing, and especially when it's music and it's something that is, you know, I don't like music brings people together. I don't think there's any argument with that, especially if you know it's something that you both enjoy. So totally, I think that's beautiful. Yeah, I was wondering, you know, if you see any, you know, other. So I'm thinking about this in a couple of different ways. So when we're thinking about the theoretical overlap between speech and music, you know, music obviously has like kind of like a syntax, and there are chunks that are like words and letters that you can form it together. Are there any other things that you see as connections at that level between music and speech?
Yeah, I think from a language perspective, words matter. And I think you and I and all of our colleagues, we believe that very deeply. So I love listening to the rhythmic, the ways in which the audio hits me, right? But I also love thinking deeply about the words. And when we can expose ourselves to certain words at the right point in time, it could really open up the doors for us in very real ways. I mean, and this is not anything breathtaking or groundbreaking, because we know about the power of poetry. We know about the power of the written story. We as a people, we recognize that there is beauty in words, but there is something to be said when those words are paired with a bit of a rhythm that is intentional, and it really paints those words in certain ways. So, when you ask that good question, I just think about the times in speech therapy where if I'm working with, like, let's say a teenager, and I say to this teenager, what are you listening to these days, in an opportunity to keep on building rapport? And then they'll name a song, and I'll say, that is a really good song. Or if I don't know it, I'm honest with them. I'll say, I don't know that song. Is it clean? Like, is it okay if we try to listen to it? You have to always make sure you find that out first.
Yeah.
The
been in that
kids
experience for sure.
sometimes they're listening to the not so good. But then I listen to it, and then I pause for a moment and I say, wow, those are some interesting words, aren't they? And it is so fun to have conversations with our friends who are growing and evolving as communicators, and how they attempt to share with you the words that mean something to them, and helping them to find the right ways to organize their mind in an opportunity to really showcase the why behind they believe that sentence is so important, and why they believe that it needed to be highlighted in that moment.
Wow, that's incredible. I've never thought about, and even this activity that you just brought up of listening to a song and commenting on it, that's such a simple, powerful activity. And I think back to, I always tell my parents to, like, for kids that are working on carrier phrases or something, just look out the window and talk about what you see. I see X, I see Y. And then what about, like, with music, there are so many more doors that open that we don't think about. I hear this, and I, especially the words, like, that word makes me feel, I feel this. And, I haven't ever, sometimes I think about this, but when I talk with a lot of friends that are maybe non-musicians, not that that's, I think everyone is hearing something valuable in the music, but they're hearing such different things than I am. And that's another tool that's like a theory of mind tool almost. Like, oh, you heard something totally different than I did.
Are you taking advantage of our new amazing feature? The Certificate Tracker. The free CE Tracker allows you to keep track of all of your CEUs, whether they are earned with us at speechtherapypd.com or through another provider. Simply upload your certificate to your registered account and you're all set. So come join the fastest growing CE provider, speechtherapypd.com.
I'm curious, when you listen to music, kind of as a musician and a speech therapist, what do you listen to and what do you listen for?
So I'm a bass guy. I've been playing the bass guitar my whole life. I'm 40 years old right now. I just turned 40, and I've been
Happy
legit.
Birthday.
Yeah, thanks, man. I've been legit playing bass since probably I was like 9 years old. So, like, this is like more than half of my life. So I'm listening to the bass. The bass, that's what's up. It's like a
Slapping the
heartbeat.
bass.
Of course. Ba-da-ba-ba-bow, and then the drums. Like, I think, bass and drums have this beautiful co-relationship. So that's what I'm really listening to. I'm a bass guy, and I'm feeling those that's what's up.
That's so cool. I love that. I'm always hearing I'm also listening to the bass, actually. The bass and the harmony is the first thing that pops out to me. And as a musician, I'm always trying to, like, figure out what harmony it is first. There's like some calculation going on in my head every time I listen to a song. So I'm hearing like that's the 1, that's the 4, that's the, etc.
And that harmony. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to throw out there, that harmony is perhaps a nod to the fact that you as a clinician are very collaborative, because I think at its core, what is harmony? Well, it's a couple of different ones coming together at just the right pitch, at just the right timing, and then it just like works. So we as clinicians, we value the collaborative experience, and I think that's a good audio representation of what collaboration could kind of sound like.
Yeah, it is that coming together of notes that makes things beautiful and interesting. And the coming together, you know, if you think about both in language and in music, is that you have a word or you have a letter or a sound or a note, you know, in other case, and they don't really mean anything on their own, but it's like the combination and like you know, the rhythmic differences between them and how it comes together, like the harmony, the glue is something that, you know, that's where the meaning comes from rather than, you know, one piece of it itself.
Perfectly said.
Yeah. So in terms of, you know, maybe getting just a little bit more practical, when you you mentioned a couple of different interventions. How, I guess, has just being a musician informed you as a speech therapist? Have you taken anything from it, or vice versa? You know, how has being a clinician informed your music playing?
Yeah.
Is there anything in either of those?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. When we think about trying to grow as a performer, there are these real goals and objectives in our mind, right? So early on in my journey as a musician, I was a big fan of Green Day. And I remember being a younger guy and like saying to myself, I have a goal. And that goal is I want to be able to play the bass to every single Green Day song on the Green Day record called Dookie. And I was a young
Great
person
album.
right there, a classic album, you know?
Classic.
So like I was a very young person there and I had this goal and I was able to have these short-term goals connected to eventually what the long-term goal was, right? So that was really neat for me to notice. So I'll be honest with you, I don't know necessarily if I noticed it as a child, but as I think back to that through the lens of a speech language pathologist, wow, right? Goals, objectives, short term, long term. What do we need to do to build on in order to reach whatever the end goal is? And, you know,
Yes.
sometimes it takes time. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. The same can be said for how we are all evolving as communicators and how some of us might be evolving as musicians. It takes time and you put in the work and ultimately good things come from putting in the work.
Definitely. Guitar was one of the first places. So I was playing guitar since I was probably about the same age as you. And it was the first thing that I really tried to get better at, like consciously tried to get better at. And I think just like you were saying before, I'm not sure that I consciously recognized a lot of these things that were happening. But as I got older and I like kind of reflected on the process of learning a skill and learning it to, I'm not going to say mastery, but like, you know, playing at a professional level, you have to learn in a certain way. You have to know about how to learn other skills generally. And it's helped me do that. And it's also helped me have a little bit of empathy for kids trying to learn speech, because speech is this, you know, incredibly complex, rich motor skill, complex motor skill that, you know, people take it for granted. And I think this is something that's helped me work with parents a lot, because I think most parents, when their child is talking, they don't have anyone else in their life that has difficulties with talking. They just think speech is something that happens, like it grows like hair or like nails or whatever. And so the process of trying to show them, okay, speech is actually, there's all these components of it. There's, you know, we have to attend to something. We have to think it's important. We have to model it. We have to practice it. We have to, you know, understand its significance. Like all of that is happening at this, like, you know, incredibly complex neural level. And breaking that down into parts is something that I was able to learn from learning music, actually. So I think that's like kind of what you're saying. But yeah, I think
Totally.
it's also helpful for showing that, hey, speech doesn't just happen. There's a physical process at work here too.
And
A
something,
lot like learning an instrument. Sorry.
yeah, something similar that we could kind of think about it from like a therapy idea perspective is like, so, when we turn on the radio, right? When we open our Spotify app, when we hear that song, it's like the finalized complete version. And a lot of people forget that it took a while to get to that finalized version. So let's say you have a client who loves Taylor Swift, right? Very, wonderful performer. And there's a high likelihood that someone on your case will likes Taylor Swift. So you can perhaps go on YouTube and you could find whatever their favorite Taylor Swift song is, but maybe Taylor Swift song name and then put in the word demo next to it. And I don't know because I never did Taylor Swift before, but I'd say there's a high likelihood you're going to find a different version of that song, which was a little bit younger, if you will, a little bit less polished, if you will. And might that be an opportunity for you to kind of listen to that version and then maybe listen to the more radio version and see what are the differences and then start to take guesses as to, well, what did Taylor have to do differently? Did she need to learn this particular style of guitar playing, or did she need to practice this particular way of vocal inflection or something? And that really just helps us to see that it takes time to keep growing and evolving, right?
Totally. There's this I saw, my wife works in music at Warner Tokyo, and Ed Sheeran came for a concert just the other day, and he had this like little speech of like, hey, listen to me when I was a kid, and he pulls out this video, and it's just him singing, and it's like just horrible. And then he's like, this is the work in progress. You don't start, the first step to being kind of good at something is like sucking at it or something like that. There's some Adventure Time quote, but yeah, I think that's so important to know because I have a lot of kids now that I work with where it's very hard for them to make mistakes, and it's very hard for them to not be good at something right away. And if they don't start out, automatically able to do this task, then they give up very, very quickly. So definitely driving that point home is great, and it's good to do through music too. Yeah. Are there any other, kind of getting more to the nitty gritty? You mentioned using some digital tools for music in speech and language intervention. Maybe for the audience, can you talk about a few things that they might be able to use pretty quickly and easily, or it doesn't have to be, but anything that you find interesting and useful?
Absolutely. So I'm a big fan of, like I said, the rhythm and the beat. So I created this little website. It's completely free and it is accessible on any, laptop as long as you got a keyboard attached to it. So it's called drumdidum.com. So that's drumdadum. So drumdidum.com. And when you pull that up right in your web browser, you have the keyboard, a line of the traditional keyboard in front of you. So it's like an A, S, D, F, G, H, J, K, L. I don't have that memorized. I'm actually looking at my keyboard right here. And you're able to hit A, S, and it's going to be like a do, ch, do, ch. So you go A, S, A, S. And that's an opportunity perhaps to see if maybe you have a client who enjoys, I don't know, rap or hip hop. It's kind of simple for you to just go 1, 2, 1, 2, and then see, are you able to drop some beats, some rhymes? You can model some of that, and then maybe you can hand it over to the client and see if there can be a back and forth. So I'm all about accessibility, and if you have access to the web browser, you can just pull that website up. There's also another website that's very similar to drumdidum.com. I created Drumdidum because I was inspired by this website. So this website is called patatap.com. So it's patatap.com. So patatap.com. And that is a very similar feeling in that you have access to your whole keyboard. And when you press one of the buttons on your keyboard, it presents with you a different tone. Sometimes it's more bassy, sometimes it's more trebly. And there's also this beautiful visual. So it could be like lines going left to right, or it could be kind of like a pop of a circle, or it could be something that looks like maybe like lightning in the sky. So you're kind of playing your keyboard and you're hearing some aspect of this musical experience, but you're also visually seeing something that matches some of those intonations. And I find that to be an unbelievable website. It's completely free, and it really opens up a lot of great doors for children and adults to start to have really random conversations,
Patatap.com. I love that.
So fun.
Yeah. The one thing that made me think of is, I wonder if we should talk about something like this too, is having something like visuals for each of the sounds, like the K sound might sound like a lightning bolt, or, something a little bit more edgy. And having each of the phonemes be connected to some kind of visual. I wonder if that would be something helpful.
That's a spot on idea. Like, that's a therapy idea right there, where you could pull up a random website like patatap.com and you could do like the sound, right? And then you can ask the question, like, do you think that sound that the website just shows you, do you think that really represents that sound that you're making? What is a different version of how you think that could sound? So like, you're working to kind of reinvent the way that it would sound. And, that's, for some children, they might really find joy in kind of critiquing the sounds that the website makes and kind of stating that they think it should be a different sound.
I love asking for your clients, the kids that you're working with, asking for their opinion, getting them in the process. Yeah. There's also, have you ever heard of the Kiki Boba study?
Oh, throw it at me. What is it?
It's just a cog-sci concept. And it's just that, the idea of, most people say that language is an arbitrary system of symbols that, represent concepts and things in the world. But it's actually not totally arbitrary, because there are words and sounds that we have embodied feelings about, like, and we have these visual representations for it. So they did this study. They've replicated this with many different things, but the first one was, they had these two words, Kiki and Boba, and then they had these two shapes. One was a spiky shape, and one was like kind of a blobby round shape. And they're like, which one do you think maps to which word? And 80% of people put like Kiki with the spiky shape, and Boba with the round shape. And you kind of like might think the same way about those two things. So basically, there's something that is also deep about our visual and spatial and embodied connections with sound that I think might be helpful for kids learning, maybe even with kids with like auditory processing issues or something like that. I'm not sure. This is all speculative, but could be something interesting to look into for sure. That's such a cool tool.
That's fascinating. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I got to look deeper into that. Yeah. Kiki and Boba,
Kiki and Boba.
Nice. And yeah, when you think about the bow, like, your mouth is generally making like a circle shape. So that's deep in us, right, that like the O would be like a rounder shape association. Yeah. And like Kiki is like it's like sharp, and like maybe that's like the spike, if you will.
Yeah, I wonder if that's even like if you look at the sound wave for it, if it has some connection to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's so many, thank you for sharing those. Those are so cool.
Yeah, sure.
I think we've talked before about beatboxing, which is something I've talked about on the podcast before, but you were mentioning that first thing where you have the beats. I love that. And then there's a beatboxing game called Rhyme on the Four, where you just have a rhyming word, you know, cat, bat, you know, and you go around in a circle and you play. And I feel like that's such a cool game to get kids.
That is fun.
Yeah, yeah. That can be used too with the drum to dum.
Yeah, totally. So use that drum to dum, you know, go for it.
Yeah.
Let me know how it works.
Therapists they're super creative. So it's cool to hear when people come back with, you know, therapists that will take, you know, a beatboxing idea and then have some way of implementing it. That's like, oh, whoa, why didn't I think of that? So,
I know. We are a wonderful breed of people. We are so creative as clinicians. And I love how, you know, the internet exists in a way where we can readily share with each other. And, you know, that idea then snowballs into other ideas and it just becomes so many different things. And that's the beauty of sharing with one another.
Definitely. And anything else that you've used in that you tend to use in practice?
Yeah, you know what I've been doing. Yeah, like very consistently over the last couple of years, I've been really getting into what's called Eurovision Song Competition. And for those of us who might not know what that is, it's very big in Europe. And it's kind of sort of like American Idol, if you will, where there's a bunch of people that come together and they have a song and they perform the song. And it's a big global event that's not very popular in America. So I mentioned that to say every like Mayish, Aprilish is like the Eurovision Song Competition. And these performers are representing countries, right? Sweden, Slovenia, like Poland, Germany. And what's really interesting is I'm a big fan. I listen to these songs and I'll bring a couple of these songs to the therapy room. And sometimes the song is paired with a really cool music video. And the cool thing is, it's not uncommon for them to be speaking in a different language, non-English. So it's so cool for us to first maybe listen to the song, maybe watch the video, or maybe just listen to the song. And we're hearing communication, of course, but we don't quite understand it because we might not speak that language. So what we can do is we can make guesses. We can come up, what does our gut say the song might be about? And then what we can do is we can go on Google, we can get the words. So even if it's in German, you can copy and paste that German text, and then you could go on Google Translate, drop it from German to English. And I know it's not perfect translation, but it does give you a bit of a gist, perhaps. And then you could start to see, did I get the song right? So you were listening to the tones, you were listening to the songs, and sometimes the children are spot on. Like the song that's about love, like the children, they catch it and they're like, that's about love. That's about love. They might not even know the word love in that language, but they're like, I feel like that word might actually mean love. There's like an 80% chance children nail that. So we give them space to kind of explore the non-English music. And wow, it is very eye-opening. And it's a real nod to, you know, the multicultural aspect, right? We can showcase stuff that might not be in their backyard per se, and that's helping them to grow as global citizens.
I love that. Yeah. There's this one study that I heard about that was like they just had people, I think they're English people, listen to like Indian ragas and try and guess what the intent and the emotions were behind, you know, and knowing nothing. These are people knowing nothing about Indian classical music, and then having them listen to see if they were able to capture the, you know, get the meaning or the gist of what the musicians are going for. And they're like pretty spot on. And it speaks to, you know, that there's this like deep universality in music, you know, transcending cultural boundaries. Like even if we don't know the exact system or the tones, like we have a sense of from the way the notes come together, the speed, you know, the articulation of the notes, all the super segmentals, as we call them. We have a pretty good sense of what they mean.
I love that.
I think that's really cool.
That's powerful. Yeah. And then another thing I'll do with some people, not all people, of course, because we recognize that music might not resonate with every single person. But for the ones it does, I very often will say, hey, let's start a band together. And they're like, what does that mean? I'll say, we're going to start a band. And, sometimes it is more official in that, like, I have a guitar, you sing a song, I'm going to sing a song. But other times it's a little bit more on the silly side in that we have 2 pencils and we're going to be drumming on the table and we're going to just come up with lyrics. And yes, there's the coming up with the lyrics thing, but then we can go beyond that. I might say to them, we got to design a band t-shirt because that's how you make some money. You got to make the merch. Yes. So like I take a white piece of paper, I draw an outline of a shirt, and now I can work on multi-step directions, right? Before you color the shirt green, I want you to color the collar pink. We could talk about WH questions. What animal makes a bark sound? Dog. Let's put a dog on that shirt because we need to come up with some sort of dog-related song, right? So we start off with music, and yes, we're doing audio-driven things, but then we do other visually driven things too with designing the merch. And I love doing things like that.
Man, I wish I had you as a teacher when I was a kid, man. That sounds awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, that's such a cool activity. I love that. The whole process of so much goes along with that, and it's so exciting. I remember being a kid, and I think I started a band about the same time as you. Funny how our paths overlap in that way. It was a garage band called International Pastime. We had we had this, we were playing punk pop and stuff like that. It was really fun. But we tried to design a logo, and that's all we were thinking about in school, for a while.
Absolutely. So you're bringing together art, you're bringing together music, you're perhaps planting the seeds of entrepreneurialism into the child's mind, right? I love it.
I mean, that's one thing is it's so, especially not for all kids like you're mentioning, but for those kids that love it, it's something that is just something so exciting and rewarding, that it can even be. One thing I was thinking about is that music changes your state so easily, and it's something that can prep you. Let's say you're doing an activity that requires a lot of energy. It can prep you for that action. It can, if you're feeling, you've had kids that have difficulty sitting down or paying attention, can increase focus by, listening to a bout of music. So, getting ready, you're prepping for whatever activity you're going for. And then it also is, it's like a rewarding, it could be, reward their favorite song after finishing an activity or it's like, a lot of music can just be in this environmental way, like cues, almost like behavioral cues or something, where setting the stage, you're rewarding behavior, I guess.
Absolutely. And when we think about like auditory input, we're speaking a lot about music, which is the very structured form of like melody, right? And how about noise in general? And what I mean by that is, a couple weeks ago, I'm reading a story with a child, and the story revolves around a river. And in the background, I pull up a YouTube clip and I minimize it so they don't see the video of it, but they hear the audio. And I typed in Google, river noises or stream or, like something like that. So like I have this playing in the background, and you hear like the and you kind of hear the wind too and the stream, and it enhances the shared storybook experience that I'm having with that child, right? And though it's not music per se, it's intentional noise that I think you and I could argue it is music in such a beautiful way. And it's bringing another important layer to the speech therapy experience that I have intentionally designed for this young person.
Yeah. It's cool. It's crazy what we can do now with YouTube and just bring in Spotify and things like that. You can really, be an architect of your experience in your environment way more than we ever have had the opportunity to. And like definitely, and even something like you're mentioning the background sounds, but like brown noise and white noise and binaural beats and things like that. There are these like frequencies that you can play that are, will be calming. And I love the background stream. I have a lot of ambient nature noises in my house going on because it's the middle of Tokyo and there's like construction and everything. So just need a little bit of peace. But
and that does something to you, right? It settles you.
Totally.
It puts you in the right mind frame.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny though, like when I'll pull up these little songs, it's funny because like I don't pay for like a YouTube like premium account. So like almost always like the first thing we hear is like the shampoo ad or like the car ad. It's like, wait, hold on 1 second. And then you got to click skip ad, right?
I remember, back in the day I was listening to a playlist and it was like, just I forget what was happening. It was like a calming, like we were trying to sit and meditate and it was like when ads were just starting on YouTube and then it was like just right in the middle of the silence. It was like a huge loud car ad for something. And I was like,
it's like a record check. It's like, what?
Yeah. Well, I feel like we got to get to a couple of the really important questions. If number one, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Goo Goo Dolls Slide. I don't know if you know that song, but that's my jam every single time. Why don't you slide? Put your arms around me. What you feel is what you are, and what you are is beautiful. That's my song, man. Goo Goo Dolls.
Amazing.
Give it a listen, audience. Give it a listen.
I'll have to karaoke sometime. What is, if you were to take 5 physical albums with you on a desert island, cassette, vinyl, or CD, which albums would you take?
I would take Green Day Dookie. Classic. I would take The Killers, Hot Fuss. That's a great album. So I'm starting like old. Like Green Day Dookie was like 94 or something. Hot Fuss is like probably like 2004 or something. Then I would say
Decade by Decade.
This band Neck Deep is really cool. They're from Wales. I would take The Peace and the Panic, I think it's called, 2017. That's 3, right? We need 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Dookie, Hot Fuzz,
Neck Deep. Goo Goo Dolls, whatever record.
Goo Goo Dolls, whatever.
Goo Goo Dolls Greatest Hits. That's what that would be. That's number 4. And this band called Fireworks. They're from Detroit. Record came out last year. It's one of my favorite records. It's called Higher Lonely Power. So
Higher Lonely Power. You heard it, folks.
Yeah.
Well,
great question. So Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to open it up to, I know we had a couple of questions, and I wanted to just open it up to any questions that you might have. And if not, we can still, I can talk to this guy for days. It's so fun. But if there's anything that you want us to answer, I'm just going to go through here and look at the comments. So looks like Cheryl Gooden said that she's an SLP and her daughter is a classically trained opera singer. Awesome. And we want to collaborate. Any ideas? Cool. I love that. Always about collaboration. An opera singer, that's super rare. Anything come to mind?
That's something I don't know much about. And I say that intentionally because maybe from a collaborative experience, you can ask your daughter, or you would ask the person who likes opera and is invested in that very legitimate genre to tell me about opera and to come with open arms to say, I don't know much about it, but I want to know more about it. And that's putting a client in a position where they're able to share with you. And sometimes I think the client-clinician relationship feels very lopsided in that the clinician is informing the client. And I get it because we went to school to study this thing called communication sciences and disorders or whatever. So we have stuff to give, but whenever possible, we need to turn the table so that the client can give us something. So that's what comes to my mind. If I ever had a client that loved opera, I would soak up as much opera knowledge from that person so that I could become well versed in it. And then from there, maybe some sort of collaborative thing naturally comes to the surface.
Yeah, definitely. I love the flipping the tables. I the first thing that came to mind was just that opera singers are, known to be like the top 1% of people with healthy, beautiful voices. So any voice clients, or I might think of even using her as like a poster for work on vocal exercise, vocal function exercises, or something like that. I don't know. That's just what came to mind. But yeah, opera is I think something that needs to be. You never hear about. I haven't heard. Even when I was a kid, opera wasn't a big thing. So I don't think I've ever been to opera, or I would love to just know more about it.
Well, dude, we know what we're gonna do. Next time we get together, we got to go to an opera show.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Nice, man. Front row.
That. Beautiful. Thanks so much, Cheryl. So Larry asked about Drum to Dum website. Do you have the and Patatap? Let me just spell them out here. Can you spell it for me one more time? Or maybe Eric, can you type it in the chat?
Yeah, I'll do that right now. It's perfect. Here we go. I'll do drumdadum.com. So there's that one. And then it'd be pattap.com is the other one.
Great. And I think that was Melanie's question as well.
Yeah.
Ginger, all communication is improvisation. Love that.
So true.
True statement.
Great comment.
Playing jazz. Miles Davis. I work with very young children in early intervention. Any specific ideas on using music to facilitate speech? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first, I don't know if do you want to take this?
Oh, you go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing that is really common that I use is something like MIT, but it's basically like using musical carrier phrases. I see this in something like that, I want milk. And what that does, I think it does a few different things. One is that music helps you to naturally give a good model, and for the child to be able to hear all of the sounds and imitate it more easily. If you say like, I want, you sound like Dory from Finding Nemo talking to the whale. It doesn't sound natural, but if you were to sing it, you can stretch these phrases out naturally. And so it allows you to imitate as a child learning to imitate and use language. It's easier. And it also, I think it's just more, music being so engaging. It's just something that they naturally start to do.
That sounds like a really great idea. So functional, and an idea that most children will kind of go in for that. It doesn't feel like it's forced. It feels so natural. So you as the model can showcase some of that melodic type way of doing the phrase, and hopefully that child, follows suit.
Absolutely. I'm just going to put these, I realized that the websites, I think they're just sent to the panelists. So let me see if I can put them here. There's one.
Oh, my mistake.
No problem. And there's the second one.
Yep, to everyone it says now. Good.
Okay. Fantastic.
And I'm happy Cheryl says she looked at both of those websites and she said that they're pretty cool. So loving that. Thank you, Cheryl.
Right on. And Joni says that she starts her sessions with singing, with a singing toy with the words to a song on a poster board. Cool.
Ooh, yeah.
And then we learn the words to the song and sing it with the singing animal. It warms up the session from the beginning.
That's perfect.
Great.
That consistency for those children, I'm sure they really look forward to that, and it starts to really get them in the right frame of mind. I used to do similar things early when I used to work a lot with preschoolers. We used to go open, shut them, do a little clap, open, shut them, put them in your lap. I was like, love it. That's a good song. I haven't sang that in a while.
It's a banger.
It sure is.
Yeah. So I was thinking of, also when you mentioned the animal, in beatboxing practice, I like to do a lot of beatboxing with my clients. Sometimes we'll do something called beatboxing orchestra, and we'll have little stuffed animals, and they each have a sound associated with them, and you can
that's awesome
and make the sound, or even make the whatever animal it is, like a bear, you can roar, whatever, you can make the animal sounds.
Yes. Oh, that's the best. Oh,
cool. Claudia's saying that Fergie's mom is an SLP. Had no idea.
Oh, I didn't know either. That's what's up. Black Eyed Peas. That's what's up.
Yeah.
I got to look that up. That's cool.
SLP facts, SLP music facts. That's so funny. Well, we have a couple of minutes left, and I just want to say thank you again to all of you for coming. Thanks to you, Erik. It's been lovely talking to you as always. And yeah, thank you again, man. You're a legend.
Dude, it takes one to know one, man. It's always great.
You want to leave us with?
Keep a song in your heart and keep on doing the great work that you're all doing. You're fantastic SLPs, and you are planting all the right seeds.
Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Erik. Everyone take care, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for joining us for today's course. To complete the course, you must log into your account and complete the quiz and the survey. If you have indicated that you are part of the ASHA registry and entered both your ASHA number and a complete mailing address in your account profile prior to course completion, we will submit earned CEUs to ASHA. Please allow 1 to 2 months from the completion date for your CEUs to reflect on your ASHA transcript. Please note that if this information is missing, we cannot submit to ASHA on your behalf. Thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you next time. Thanks for joining us at SLP Learning Series. Remember to go to speechtherapypd.com to learn more about earning ASHA CEUs. We appreciate your positive reviews and support and would love for you to write a quick review and subscribe. If you like this and want to hear more, we are offering an audio course subscription special coupon code to listeners of this podcast. Type the word SLP Learn for $20 off. With hundreds of audio courses on demand and new courses released weekly, it's only $59 per year with the code. Visit speechtherapypd.com and start earning ASHA CEUs today.